Did you ever wrestle in high school, or maybe you know somebody who did, high school, college, whatever? Kind of interesting to watch these guys try to outdo each other. That's something I never got into. I just don't have the physical capabilities, don't have the mental capabilities, but I admire those who do. But imagine you are a high school wrestler, maybe college wrestler, and I'm not talking about the stuff you see on TV, I'm talking about the real sport. But you're a high school wrestler and you go to the match and your opponent doesn't show up. What are you going to do? Well, I guess you could win by default, but that's, what's the point of that? The whole idea of having a wrestling match is to win, is to compete, right? Okay. Well, how do you derail a narcissist, and how do we apply that analogy of a high school wrestler going to a wrestling match and his opponent doesn't show up? Well, number one, we need to understand that every encounter with a narcissist is a wrestling match. Now, it's not physical. It's what we would call a brain game or a mind game. Well, what happens if the narcissist, and they do this all the time, every day, all day. It's all they do. It's all they want to do. They're dependent on this. So you just don't show up. You don't play their brain game. You don't play their mind game. You're just not going to participate. Period. Just leave them stand there. If they try to argue with you about something, why is that? Well, they're trying to draw you into that argument. You are being baited. What happens if somebody argues with you and you don't answer them? Just say nothing at all. Absolutely, positively quiet. What we need to understand is this basic principle. Proving themselves to be themselves is what narcissists are all about. He or she wants you to defend yourself. They provoke you or bait you intentionally so that you will fight them. Why do they want to fight? Well, why does a schoolyard bully want to fight everybody? That's his way of assuring himself, reassuring himself that he is somebody. That's where he gets his self-esteem. Narcissists are basically schoolyard bullies. They've got the mindset of an 8-year-old when they do this. I mean, literally. I know narcissists, not all of them, but I know narcissists who are homeless because they are so dependent on their getting supply for their ego, and they do this through these brain games, these mind games. They're basically destitute. So number two is this. One of the things that we want to do is take them to the mat. They're wrestlers. Okay, we'll show them a thing or two. We'll show them how this is done. Rather, what we need to do is, again, to reiterate, is we need to leave the mat alone. Now, here is a principle you want to take away with you. Call it a takeaway. You may even want to write this down. It's that important. But your gullibility is your vulnerability. Everybody has a vulnerability. Everybody is vulnerable. For an empath, or for most people, being gullible is our vulnerability. That's our weak point. That's where, if you're wrestling, you're looking for the other guy's weak points, you can take advantage of it. Okay, got it. What is the narcissist weak point? The narcissist weak point is their dependence on receiving supply for their ego. Okay, let's shorten that down. Their egos are their vulnerability. So, again, their whole life is about feeding their ego. They've got this dependency on that. They got to have their fix. Don't give it to them. And by denying them that fix, by not going to the mat with them or trying to take them to the mat or allowing yourself to be baited or whatever, by not giving that to them, you just derail them. Back in the 60s, they had a saying, what if they gave a war and nobody came? What if there was an argument and you refused to argue? What if there was a narcissist who wanted to wrestle? And man, I don't want to wrestle. Don't even say it. Just don't do it. Number 3, and this I think is kind of important, and you'll agree with me, that a derailed, rather, narcissist is less likely to hurt you. If there is no wrestling match with a narcissist, hey, there's no maneuvers. There's no little tricks of, things people do when they wrestle. There's no gaslighting. There's no smear campaign. There's no attacking or abusing you in a number of different ways. Mentally, sometimes physically. That just all goes away. That's why it's so important to just derail a narcissist by not participating. Just leave it alone. Now, by the way, when we say narcissist, we're not talking about somebody who has a formal, official diagnosis of narcissism or narcissistic disorder. We're talking about people who display narcissistic traits, just people in general. Number 4 is make unilateral decisions. In other words, you're in control, you make the decision, and you make the decision not to wrestle. If you make the decision to wrestle, you're making the wrong decision. But the problem with a narcissist is we soon find our place in this codependency scenario where the narcissist is now making our decisions for us, and we don't even know it. So when somebody prompts you to fight, baits you to fight, not necessarily physical, but argue, they're making your decision for you. They prompted you, they baited you, and now you are reacting. You don't have to. You're doing it because they pulled your string, so to speak. You're like a puppet on a string, and the narcissist pulls your string, and you respond. You react according to the pulling on the string. And he loves it. There's nothing that a narcissist loves any better than being a puppeteer. You being the puppet. The reason is they like to control everybody all the time. Because my personal opinion is, I think it's innate, I think it's natural, but I also think it is something that they are so dependent on that they just can't not do it. They have to be pulling somebody's strings all the time. Response: I'm not a puppet. Sorry, narcissist, but you go pull somebody else's strings. Then finally, number 5, and this just kind of fits right in with everything we've talked about up to this point, almost like a summary, but do this. Waste his or her time and efforts. If they want to prod you, if they want to bait you, they want to pull your strings, and you don't respond, well, you derail them because they're just wasting their time. You know what they're going to do? They're going to go find someone else. They got to have that fixed. They got to have that supply. They are dependent on that for the survival of their ego. And that's all they care about is boosting their ego. And if you don't respond, they're going to go somewhere else. They're derailed. Now, I know what a lot of people think. They think, I'm not letting this guy get away with it. I'm going to show him he doesn't know who he's messing with. I'm going to show him a thing or two. That's exactly what they want you to do. You're just falling in line with their scheme. They have got you. Will it work? Well, maybe, but one thing that I know, at least in my life, is just staying away from these people. That always works. I don't want to fight with anybody. You may have to respond to a few accusations, but never to the narcissist. Always to the people in the triangulation to whom they have spoken. So sometimes the best strategy is to have no strategy. The best strategy is to be unresponsive. Folks, you can't go through life fighting with everybody all the time. The first of 7 lies that virtually every narcissist will tell his victims is that he is your friend or she is your friend. Or if it's a romantic relationship, he or she will say, I love you. Now, a couple things you got to note here. Number 1, They don't always say these things verbally. A lot of times they say them by their actions. They come across as being very friendly, as being very loving, but in reality, that's not what's going on at all. We've got 7 of these altogether, but when you get to the very end, and you're going to have to hear this, at the very end, we got 2 more. Those are things that narcissists tell other people after they have discarded you, after they have totally abused you. So the first thing they want to do is win your trust. They want to win you over by becoming your friend or becoming your love interest. And number 2 is, again, they're saying that you can trust me. And they want to present themselves as being very trustworthy. So they are very trustworthy at the very beginning. But it's all an act, it's all a play. They're just putting on. You got to be very careful when you deal with these people because they're so gifted, so good at this, and they've had lots of practice. I believe that narcissism virtually always is something that is innate. I mean, it's just genetic. They've got the narcissist DNA. Now, it could be that when they were little, when they were children growing up, they went through some traumatic experiences that inflamed their narcissism or justified it. So it becomes even more intense. But they do like to convince people, their victims, that they can be trusted. They understand relationships as give and take. Well, that's the way I understand relationships. I give and I take, and my friends or my love interest, and there's only one, by the way, we give and we take. Well, when the narcissist thinks give and take, he thinks you give and he takes, or she takes. That's what narcissism is all about. It's their way, all the time, every time. Number 3 is they want to tell you that you can depend on me. They like to present themselves as being extremely dependable. It's kind of like trust, except they want you to think that they got your back. If somebody comes after you and criticizes you or says something bad about you or takes advantage of you, they got your back. And sometimes they do. They will come to your defense, not because they care about you, not because they see some injustice, but because they're trying to keep you. They prize you as, it's kind of like you're a farm animal, and they've got this little corral in their mind, and you are in the corral. Okay, they got a coop of chickens, a chicken coop. And if the fox comes to eat the chickens, well, you know, the narcissist doesn't care about the chickens, or the farmer doesn't care about the chickens as much as he cares about himself. I mean, those are his chickens. They lay eggs for him. They help supply his family. He sells those eggs and makes money. And if the fox comes in, nothing against the fox, not that he loves the chicken, but he loves himself, and so he's going to run off the fox. That's what we mean by the narcissist. I was going to say the farmer, but both of them saying, you know, you can trust me. I got your back. You can depend on me. I will always be there. When the fox comes after you and some bad guy comes to hurt you, you can count on me. When I was putting my thoughts together for this presentation, what came to mind, oddly, you know, that story about Hansel and Gretel, how they were taken in by the wicked witch. That's a pretty good story. Well, at least it was when I was 5 years old. But the story is that the witch had this, what was it, a gingerbread house or some kind of house, I don't know. But it was very, very attractive. And the children went in because, hey, look, candy, sugary food, or whatever they ate back in the day. And they were taken in by it. But once they got inside and once they were snared in the witch's trap, they found themselves in trouble. That is a good representation of what narcissism is all about and what it does to you. You don't figure it out till it's too late, and they're very good. Narcissists are very good at coming across as being your most prized friend, when in reality, you are their most prized possession, or one of them. You're just a chicken in the chicken coop. Number 4, the narcissist will tell you, and again, he may not say this, or she may not say this verbatim, but they will communicate to you one way or the other as saying, you can be open with me. They love that. When you start telling your personal experiences and the things that you hate and people who have hurted you or hurt you rather, or people that maybe have helped you, and you talk about all these things, the narcissist, as we've mentioned again and again in other videos, he has or she has a database in her mind, and they keep all of these things in their reservoir of thoughts, their database. They're going to use those things against you at a later date. They want you to be open with you, but when they get into the smear campaign of a phase of your relationship, believe me, if there's anything bad that you said about anybody else, they will make sure that those other people that you were talking about hear about it. If you said something kind about other people, the narcissist has a knack of spinning that. So it sounds like you said something bad about them, even though you were complimenting them. And they will go to those people, and the person will say, yeah, I remember him saying that or her saying that. Number 5 is they want you to believe that they are so absolutely honest. They love to present themselves as being religious, or they love themselves as being a person in authority, or they love to, or having a past of a person in authority, or they love to present themselves as being something akin to a war hero. They have some backstory, which is usually either a flat-out lie, or it may have a grain of truth to it, but it's largely embellished. But they want you to think that they are really, really honest people. Yeah, you can trust me, I'm honest. When I grew up in the city, I grew up in Indianapolis, there was a place, I remember back in the 1950s, 1960s, and it was called Honest Bob's Used Cars. Even as a little kid, I could see through that. Why? If a guy's honest, he doesn't have to put up a big sign that says he's honest. Narcissists typically don't do that. They don't just flat out say, I'm an honest guy. But what they will do is they will try to convince you, when they go through this process of winning your trust, winning your friendship or your love, they want you to think that, yeah, this is a guy who's really honest and I can trust him. Here's what I suggest you do. Once you have that first inkling, and I mean the first inkling, don't wait on this, but when you first realize that maybe this is a grifter, maybe you're being scammed, maybe you're a victim of catfishing or whatever, sometimes it's not just on the internet, check public records. I mean, as far as I know, in every state, public records are free. And if you're on the internet, they've got these scams where you have to pay $25 to access public records. You don't have to pay that. Go to the state. Go to your county. Find out and just search the guy's name or her name. See if there are any public records. Now, you may be shocked. I've done that before, and well, first of all, I checked my own name, and I found out that I don't have a perfect history. About 10 years ago, I got a traffic ticket. It's the only thing I could find, but, there it was in public records. But I searched other people who turned out to be narcissists, and they had troves, dozens and dozens and dozens of records where they had been sued multiple times, where they had been prosecuted multiple times. So, yeah, honest. He's not being honest, or she is not being honest about being honest. And the only way you know that is you got to get the facts, and you can do that by, well, the contemporary term, the popular term for that is in vernacular, is doxing. Number 6, the lie that narcissists love to tell is that it's just one big misunderstanding. Let me explain to you what's going on. So number 6 is they say, look, and they may be talking to another person after you found them out, and they say, hey, this is just a big misunderstanding. Actually, I can explain this. So number 6 is they say it's a big misunderstanding. Number 7 is they say, I can explain, and they can. They can explain away almost everything. And the way they do that, are you paying attention? Because this is so vitally important. The way they do that is they flip the story. They take the truth and they invert it. They turn it exactly backwards. So they become the victim and you become the victimizer. They are the abused, and you were the one who abused them. And I'm telling you, these guys are good liars. They can actually get that look on their face and the tone in their voice where they are so hurt. They're good at this because they've got, hey, lots and lots of practice. I mean, it depends on how old they are, but some of the narcissists that I've encountered have been doing this for decades. And they've got a long list of victims in the background. They never talk about that. Of all the things they say, they very seldom mention their other victims. And if they do, it's always in a negative light. Oh, here's a tip while I'm thinking of it. If somebody trash talks others to you, just assume they are trash talking you to others. That is a dead giveaway that you may very well be dealing with a narcissist. So it's just a big misunderstanding, and they can explain, and the way they do that is they say it was all your fault. All right, now the last two, that's number 7, but the last two are lies that they tell, not to you, well maybe to you, but by and large to other people. Number 8 is this. They will say that you got problems. Talking about you, the victim, the person that they scammed, the person that they abused. You're the one with problems. Yeah, you're the guy who did it. Okay, the smear campaign has now begun in earnest. You have been discarded. Probably because you're no longer good supply and you found them out and you begin building boundaries, and they are scared to death. They're terrified because you are going to take their mask and just rip it off so everybody will see who they truly are, and they can't deal with that. So what they do is they get busy recruiting as many flying monkeys as they possibly can. I've had people do this to me. In fact, they're still doing it. Every time they encounter anybody who they think that I may know, they make sure that they engage in a conversation that centers on me, because they want the other person to think of me as the bad guy. Some people, they will say things like, they will accuse you of being maybe arrogant. That's like a catch-all accusation. He is so proud, he is so arrogant, because everybody hates arrogant people. So right off the bat, and they believe them. They don't, I mean, some people have known me for years, and known you for years, and when the narcissist begins the smear campaign, they believe him, just right out of hand. Totally amazing. All right, so they say, you're the one who got the problem. Now, they take it a step further, and they will say this. They will say, this number 9, by the way, they will say that talking to their flying monkey, or the person they're recruiting for a flying monkey, and they're talking about you, they will say to these other people that they need to avoid you for their own good. They need to avoid you because you are dangerous. You will scam them. You will rip them off. Again, they're flipping the story, but why are they doing this? Well, a couple reasons is, number 1, they want to demonize you. It's just a way of getting supply, but more importantly, and this is the real clincher. The reason that they convince others, their flying monkeys, their potential narcissists by proxy, they want them to avoid you, because if they don't, you're going to tell them the truth. So they don't want your friends talking to you rather. They don't want they don't want anybody talking to you, because when you engage in conversation, you're going to show what's behind their mask. You're going to show them for what they really are. That, my friend, is why it's good to dox narcissists, because not all of them have public records. But it's fairly common, because they have ripped off so many people in the past who have encountered many, many lawsuits or have been prosecuted. And stop and think about it. When somebody has been sued for a scam, most people don't bother to sue somebody. Unless it's a major problem. I never sued a narcissist, but I've had to deal with a lot of them. So if this guy has, for example, I don't know, a dozen or 2 dozen lawsuits, think of how many more people didn't bother to sue him or her. It's truly amazing. So this person that we will refer to as your narcissist at the very beginning, at the very onset of your friendship, your relationship, whatever, he or she comes across as your best friend. He or she projects herself or himself as, if it's a romantic relationship, just the ideal person. I think everybody, tries to put their best foot forward, so to speak, or put on their best face. But the narcissist, it's not something that they're doing because they just want to be courteous and kind, and it's not just that they have your interest in sight, but primarily it's because they're trying to dupe you. They're trying to be somebody who they are not. They're putting on a mask. Now, everyone does that to some extent, but to the narcissist, it's totally 100%, or nearly so, nefarious. This person does not care about you at all other than what he or she can take away from you. Putting on that mask. What happens when the mask begins to slip? Now, I've used this example before in other videos, which, by the way, you want to watch some of those, but imagine that you have a dog, and you've taken that dog, or someone has taken your dog, and they taught your dog how to dance on its hind feet. So it can walk around for a while on its hind feet, and if you want, you can even dress it up, make it look kind of cute, like a clown, or put a dress on it. But that's not going to last very long. Eventually, the dog has to go back to being a dog. I mean, he's standing there, then starts walking around on his hind feet. You got him in his cute little dress or little hat, whatever, and everyone is so amazed at the dog that he can do this trick. And then he sees a squirrel, and suddenly he becomes a dog. The mask is off, the little trick, the little dancing thing, okay, that's totally gone. He reverts right back to being his true self. Now, with a narcissist, it's very similar. It may not be that instant because the mask tends to slip very slowly, but eventually it becomes obvious that this person is not who we thought he or she pretended to be. It becomes more and more evident. Well, what happens when the mask slips so much? They have so many of these tells that it just becomes overwhelmingly obvious. This is a bad guy. He's been ripping me off, or she's been taking advantage of me. I'm talking about it in a big way. This is not just your typical average individual who's just trying to put on put the good foot forward, so to speak, put on a good face. This guy's putting on a flat-out mask. I mean, he's hiding or she's hiding something horrible, and now you know it. What happens? Well, we got 6 things for you. The first thing, and these may not necessarily be in sequence, but by and large they are, is one of the first things you will see is a bit of anger and rage. You will find this person begins acting a little bit irrational. Now, the projection, the false face, the pretense, the way they presented themselves when they had the mask on, they weren't angry people. They were very centered. They presented themselves as being very knowledgeable and got their act together. That's the dancing dog. But there are these squirrels that come through in life where the mask slips, and then you begin to see the real person, and that's where we realize that filter is not in place. Maybe there was no filter at all. They were just pretending. There is no there's this on and off switch, and it's like the breaker trips, and all of a sudden you see this person becoming, sometimes in severe cases they actually become physical, but rationality is no longer there. So what you're going to see is anger, rage, and irrational behavior. Yeah, I've been through that. I'm pushing 70 years old. I've seen a thing or two over my decades. I'm just kind of sharing with you some of those things that I've experienced, and I've been, narcissist. Thought this was my best friend in the world. But once that mask started to slip, this guy became really irrational. That's the way he's been all along, but he had it hidden. He became angry. He would explode in rage. Things that, man, I hadn't seen this before. Who is this person? Let's peek behind the mask. All right, narcissists don't want you peeking behind their mask because that is their security. Number two is they see you now not as supply, but as a threat. Threat of what? How could you possibly hurt this person? Well, if word gets out that this person is wearing a mask, your narcissist is wearing a mask, that he or she is one complete phony, then he or she is not going to be able to get any more supply. These people, they need their supply. They got to have it. They absolutely positively got to have it because they are weak individuals. They, maybe not physically weak, but they are insecure. They feel inferior. And they wear that mask to boost their ego. They got to have it. They got to have that supply from others to keep them thinking, they're fooling themselves. It's kind of like self-gaslighting. They're fooling themselves into believing they are the person that they are pretending to be. So they are now seeing you as a threat, and you're going to take away their supply. Not only that, but you are a threat to themselves, because they're going to have to face themselves as they really are. They don't want to do that. They want to see themselves as a player. They want to see themselves as somebody who is very savvy. They want to have this self-perception that they are smarter than everyone else, smarter than you. But now you see behind the mask, and suddenly the narcissist realizes, hey, I'm not as smart as I thought I was. They don't like that. They want to feel like they are the most intelligent person anywhere, period. Number three, you can expect them to discard you. Now, what do we mean by discard? Well, what we mean by that is simply something like this. And I have used this illustration a couple times, but supposing you're using a tissue paper. I've got a tissue paper right here. Okay, you're done with the tissue paper. It served a purpose, but this is not your friend. This is not your buddy. This is not somebody you love. This is just an object that has no emotion, that has no personal appeal other than what you can use it for. Now I'm done with it. What am I going to do with it? Now keep in mind, pretend that I'm the narcissist and this tissue paper is you. I'm done with it. What am I going to do with it? I'm going to discard it. I'm going to put it there. I just threw it in the trash can. That's what the narcissist does to you. He's done with you. There's no more supply to be had. There's no more use for you. You never meant anything to this person. And again, it could be a friend, it could be a business relationship, it could be a romance, whatever it is, you are the tissue paper, you've been used up, you have no more value, you never did have value other than what supply you could offer at the time, but there was no emotional attachment. That was all pretense. That was all make-believe. The guy's a good actor, you didn't catch on, but now you do, and you are being discarded. Now, the two things. One that we call supply direct, and that is when you were fooled and you actually believed the mask that he was wearing was the real person or she was wearing was the real person. Well, during that period of time, you were supplying what to this guy? He was manipulating you or she was manipulating you. Often they take advantage of you for finances. Direct supply, just between you and him or her. Well, there's another thing that we would call supply that is indirect or indirect supply. Now that you're discarded, what's going to happen? Well, the narcissist is now terrified that you are going to, I hate to use the word tell on him because that sounds kind of childish, but effectively, he or she fears that you're going to spread the word that this guy is not who he pretends to be, that he is really a bad guy who's just wearing a mask. And then we actually talked about this just a second ago, but he's terrified now, or she's terrified, because all these other people that he is using for supply, all of these people that in the future he can use for supply, what we refer to as his chicken coop, they're all going to find out that the farmer doesn't really like them. He's just holding them in the coop so he can take their eggs. So he can, or eggs, depending on where you live, or that when they're done laying eggs, then he's going to discard the chickens, going to turn them into supper. So the narcissist can't allow you to warn all the other chickens that the farmer is just taking advantage of them. So what he does, and we're just using chickens as an analogy, I guess you know that. So the narcissist takes it upon himself or herself to spread the word that you are the bad guy, and he is the one who is victimized. He or she is the one that was being abused. Now, what is incredible about this is you would be surprised at the large number of people who actually believe the narcissist false story. We call this flipping, where the bad guy presents himself as the good guy and the bad guy presents you, the good guy, as the bad guy. So everything is inverted. Okay, what is that called? Well, number 4, that is called triangulation, or sometimes we call it a smear campaign. There are 3 people in the triangulation, in the triangle. There is you, there is the narcissist, and there is the third person. This is a person that you and the narcissist know in common, almost always. Could be a mutual friend, it could be a family member that the narcissist simply knows about, or if the narcissist is a family member and the third person is also a family member, you have something in common. So the narcissist goes to the third person in the triangle and notifies the third person that you are the bad guy. Expect it. Once you find out, now by the way, the smear campaign triangulation usually begins before the discard, at least in my experience. That is because, first of all, I think it's just the nature of narcissism to trash talk other people. But also I think many times it is, they're just kind of looking into the future, imagining what possibly could happen. And so it's a precautionary measure that they take, just in case they lose control of you, and they're probably, if they're older and experienced, they probably know that inevitably you're going to find out who they truly are, and so they're going to get a jump on it, and they're going to begin early talking about you behind their back. But they keep it kind of subdued because they don't want word getting back to you that they're trash talking them, but sometimes they don't care. 5th thing you can expect is the silent treatment. Not always. Sometimes the narcissist, after he or she discards you, won't leave you alone. They will even stalk you and talk directly to you every chance they can. But typically, they will give you the silent treatment. Now, not only so, but that third person in the triangle, and there are many of them, the third person in the triangle, the narcissist goes to that person, convinces the person that you are a bad guy, and that person becomes what many call a flying monkey, or I would call an agent of the narcissist, or a proxy of the narcissist. That third person is informed to keep silent, to not even talk to you, because you are such a bad person. If you speak, this is the narcissist telling the third person, if you speak to this guy or you speak to this woman, they're going to do you great harm. So the best thing to do is just stay away from them. Why would the narcissist want these other people to hate you and to avoid you at all costs? Because he knows, or she knows, that if you and this other person have a conversation, continue your personal relationship, guess what's going to happen? They're going to find out the truth about the narcissist. So he or she, many times, will break off all communication. And he or she controls the situation. They think they're really savvy and smart about this. By convincing others to avoid you, not to talk to you at all. They're very good at this. And again, as we mentioned earlier, you would be surprised how many of your good dear friends actually fall for it. What is the positive that can come out of that? Well, maybe you already caught it, but the positive that comes out of triangulation and the smear campaign is those people who are your good friends, you realize, you know what? They never were my good friends. Yeah, we need to do a video just on that, the advantages of being gaslighted. Then number 6, one of the things we realize is that we go through this period of anxiety, of pain, emotional pain, because we have been betrayed. Somebody we thought was our dearest friend in the world, somebody we could really trust, and we did trust, somebody we can fight it in, a shoulder that we could cry on. And now we're going through the emotional pain of realizing all that was fake. Well, what do we do when that happens? Typically, what will occur is we will take the position, the posture that we can't trust anybody. Because how do we know who is and who is not a fake? Now that can be detrimental, but there is a positive side to that as well. You know, the proverbial silver lining of the cloud. In that we need to learn to put our guard up. The reason the narcissists took advantage of us in the first place is because we were so gullible. Okay, now we can go too extreme to the other side, where we trust nobody ever for any reason. Because that will make us feel safe and secure. So we can go too far the other direction. But if we get somewhere in the middle, where we're not totally gullible, but we're not mistrusting everybody, so now we have our guard up, what that does for us, thank you narcissists for helping us with this. But what that does is that helps us to grow up a little bit, to no longer trust everybody, to be a little bit skeptical, suspicious, wondering, looking out for those signs that this could be a person who is a narcissist. Maybe, maybe not, but I'm going to watch for the signs in the future with everyone. So that is a positive outcome of something that is very, very negative. The problem is the narcissist, or I should say your narcissist, loves to control you. They are fascinated by the ability that they have, and they're just really proud of it, that they can pull your strings and make you do whatever they want you to do. Now, that may be a bit of an exaggeration, but yeah, they want to get inside your head, and they're very good at it, and control your thoughts. Okay, so you know, this is after the discard or during the process of the discard, and you build these boundaries around you to keep the narcissist out. There, he's gone. But the problem is, it's like building a fence around your garden to keep the rabbit out when the rabbit is in the garden. Well, what you did is you just fenced the rabbit in the garden. That's what we do when we begin ruminating and thinking over and over again these negative thoughts about how this guy ripped you off, or this girl, whoever it is, or how they took advantage of you, and we just obsess with that through rumination, and what has happened is it's inside us. The narcissist is out of sight. We can't hear them. We can't see them, except in our head. That's where they are, inside our head. So number one is this: how to deal with this problem, how to get them out of our mind. Well, I guess this is kind of obvious, but we need to reset our thinking, because we need to understand that he or she did whatever he or she did to us, or said whatever they said, because we put ourselves in a position where we allowed them to. Now, I'm not saying that we are totally to blame, because they blindsided us. We didn't know it was coming, but still, ultimately, we put ourselves in that situation. We didn't know it. We fell for their love bombing, for their grooming, and they got us. Okay, now that they got us, they're inside our head, because now we're thinking about how this person just treated us so poorly. So first, we need to focus on resetting our thinking. Get the rabbit out of the garden. We built the fence around it to protect us from the rabbit, and there he is inside the garden. So we need to get him out. Number two is this: we do this by refocusing rumination. Rumination, I would say, is the refuse or the trash of negative engagements. So you had an engagement with this individual. You met somewhere. When I say engagement, I'm talking about you had an experience with this person of one kind or another. You engaged with him. Maybe it was a conversation, maybe it was business dealing, maybe it was a family issue, but you had this engagement with this individual. And now you're focusing on that because it did not turn out well. Did you ever notice that we tend to focus on and ruminate about things that are negative, that hurt us, but never, or almost never, about the good things? Why is that? Somebody does something nice to us and we don't stop and think about that over and over again, that, oh, that person was so kind. That person was so nice. I've talked about this in other videos, but the way to deal with that is to consciously, intentionally make a list. I'm talking about a physical, literal list. Get out your spreadsheet on your computer and make a list of positive things that you have experienced ever. Maybe go back to day one of your life, maybe just the last 24 hours. I like to focus on what happened the last 24 hours. Positive experiences that I have had with people. What am I doing? Well, I'm focusing my brain. I'm focusing my thoughts. Well, more accurately, I'm refocusing my thoughts away from the rumination. Now, well, I was going to say that's sometimes hard to do, but really it's not. How hard is it to think? Well, you're thinking right now, so it must be pretty easy. Now, if you can type or if you can write, I'm assuming most people can, that how hard is it to write your thoughts? How hard is it to remember something positive that happened? Not hard at all. Now, what happens when you don't do that, if you just let your mind wander? Well, it goes on autopilot, and that's where rumination comes in. So the narcissist hurt you, and now you're ruminating about that. Got to get it out of your mind, got to reset your mind, and you do that intentionally, willfully, purposely, my opinion, by making a list, by being thoughtful, mindful of good things. Yeah, good things actually did happen to you, whether you want to admit it or not, but good things that have happened to you. Number 3 is this: you become consciously aware, intentionally, you get this thought in your head, that you live with the consequences of your decisions. The narcissist doesn't really control your brain. He or she just thinks she does. But if we allow them to, well, good for the narcissist, bad for you. But ultimately, we need to keep in mind that we're the ones who decide whether or not we're going to allow that rumination to stay inside our head. We got to make a decision. I'm going to let it stay there. I'm going to get rid of it. No one's going to make that decision for you. Now, if you choose to make no decision whatsoever, now listen to me because this is important. If you opt to make no decision, then you are deciding to keep the rumination inside your head. If you make a decision not to get the rabbit out of the garden, the rabbit's going to stay in the garden and he's going to be very happy there. Maybe it's a she. I don't know. If you make the decision not to end the rumination, you're making a decision to not end the rumination. It's so obvious. I'm not sure why I'm even saying it, but it's something we need to be conscious of. That we have to live with the consequences of our actions. And again, if we don't get the rabbit out of the garden, then we're going to live with the consequences of having a rabbit. You know, rabbits, one day you got 1, next day you got 10. And they're inside your garden. Same thing with rumination. Okay, you got these thoughts and they just explode. You know, they just have a way of reproducing themselves. Number 4 is this. Got to be honest with yourself. Got to be honest with yourself. There's a little exercise that I suggest people do to come to terms with being honest with themselves. And I want you to think if you were an employer, you worked in the human resources department, and your job was to hire people. And I want you to imagine you're sitting at your desk. You are the hiring, firing person. That's your job. And then you walk in the door. So there you are giving yourself an interview to work for wherever it is. Maybe at the factory. I don't know. Would you hire you? Why? I mean, you're sitting there talking to yourself and you're asking yourself about your strong points, about your weak points. And while you're talking to yourselves, you got to be honest because you know if you're lying, right? So, okay, put it in these terms. Myself, if I were the recruiter of an NBA basketball team, I would not hire me. I just wouldn't. You know, number 1, I'm too old. Number 2, I couldn't play ball when I was young. So it really doesn't, no, sorry, get out of my office. I'm not going to hire you. I'm just being honest with myself. I'm not that good at playing basketball, right? But there are some things I'm good at. So if I were the human resources person, maybe at a factory somewhere, okay, then I might consider hiring me because I think I would be good for the job for a while until I get bored to death. Most of my life I've been self-employed. I own my own business. That's what I'm good at, and nobody hired me. And that's another point. Totally off topic, but consider, sometimes just hiring yourself. If you want to be self-employed, first employee you have is, well, you. Give yourself an interview. Number 5, and I love this one, and that is you can change only one person. Now, you can influence other people, you can have an effect on other people, and other people can have an influence on you and affect you, but there is only one person ultimately that you have the most control over, and guess who that is? Well, it's a guy you just interviewed in your office. That's you. You control you. So we have these negative responses, reactions, this rumination to the narcissist getting inside our head. Who's in charge of your head? I think you are. Yeah, you're in charge of your head. Now, what happens is we use our brain for a trash dump. And whatever garbage somebody wants to dump in there, we just let them dump it in. Sometimes we can't stop them. I mean, you can't, as the saying goes, you can't unhear what somebody says. But you don't have to ruminate on it. If somebody dumps trash in your front yard, literally where you live, you don't have to let it sit there. You can go out there. It may make you mad, frustrated that you have to do this because somebody would have the nerve to dump trash in your yard. But ultimately, it's your yard. You got to go get that trash out of your yard. Somebody else should do it, but they're not going to. So, and I guarantee you, the narcissist who put those negative influences, thoughts in your head, got no interest in getting them out because he wants them there. It just shows that he or she is controlling you. So it is your responsibility. So we say that you and only you are the one who can change yourself. And if you're waiting for somebody else to do it, I mean, it's perfectly okay to get help, counseling, consulting, if it's somebody you trust, but ultimately you're the one who has to go do that. So assume responsibility for yourself after you are honest with yourself and you know what your limits are, you know what your abilities are. And you got to keep this in mind. When you're dealing with narcissists, is the things they did to you, that helps expose your character, what you're going to do with it. But it also exposes the narcissist character. And it also exposes the character of other people in your life when triangulation begins, when the smear campaign begins. So yeah, you're responsible for you, but you're also responsible, I think, for being conscientious of what's working in the minds of other people. And I've talked about this in other videos, but there are some real advantages to a smear campaign. Number 1, you find out who your friends are. Number 2, you find out who your friends are not. Those are the ones who listened to the narcissist and believed his or her nonsense. Finally, that takes us to this one. This is a big one. This is a big one. Number 6 is this. Now, it may sound a little cliche, but that doesn't reduce its importance, and that is that you have one chance to live. One life. That's it. One lifetime. No redo. You can't, okay, I screwed up that life. Let me have another one. I'll do this one right. Because I learned so much from my last life, I'm going to live a second life. Unless you believe in reincarnation, that's not the way reality works. And if you do believe in reincarnation, I'll just skip over this part. But, we talk about saving time. We don't save time. You can't put time in a bottle and say, well, I only need 20 hours today, but I could use that extra 4 hours, next week sometime. You can't do that. You can't take time to the bank and put it in a deposit safety box. It doesn't work that way. You use it or you lose it. So we say, okay, I can't relive my life. Got it. But guess what? We can reduce that down to today. You can't relive today, ever. Once it's gone, it's gone. So you use it or you lose it. Now, we can reduce this as far as you want to go. We could say you can't relive this hour, you can't relive this very minute, because when the clock turns over, the minute is gone. Okay, you can't relive the second, the nanosecond, however far down you want to get it. You get it and you got it. Time, we don't take time to do anything. Time takes itself. You use it or you lose it. Now we all know what we mean, take time to do something, but in a very literal sense, that's not what we're doing. We don't take time. Time just comes and goes. We don't have anything to do with that. Do I want to waste today? Well, do I want to waste my life ruminating, stirring the trash in my brain because some narcissist wants to use it for his trash dump? Do I want to spend my life doing that? Do I want to spend today doing that? What about an hour? Nah. Well, how do you get this out of there? Well, the thing that I suggest to people is you've got to intentionally refocus your thinking, because rumination is by default. Your brain just does it. You don't have to do it intentionally. But what you can do is intentionally refocus your thoughts. How do you do that? Well, you can listen to music. You can read a book, read the news on the internet, whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do to refocus your thoughts. And the more you do that, the less rumination takes up space in your brain. I guess that's the best way to say it. So yeah, the narcissist just used your front yard to dump trash. Now you're going to have to haul it out. And the way to do that, it's really kind of fun. You stop and think about it. You do something you enjoy. Wow. Listen to music. Read something that you like to read. Watch television if you can find anything decent on. Do what you're doing now. Listen to a video. The first phrase actually is not a phrase, it's just a word, and the word number one is whatever. Phrase number one is whatever, single word phrase. That is a word that narcissists almost never use. All right, the title says never use. I should say very seldom use. Now, I came up with this list of 6 things because I was doing my channel on Asperger's syndrome, and I was noting that these are words that I actually came up with a list with words and phrases that people with Asperger's overuse, including myself. But as I was going through the list, it occurred to me that people with narcissism, narcissistic syndrome or tendencies, these are words I just never hear them use. And they almost never use the word whatever, because it is so, I'm guessing, is just so dismissive rather, that they just don't want to say it because they don't want to be dismissive. They want to be in control. Nothing, it seems, is dismissive to a narcissist except people that they don't like, which is just about everybody, unless they can abuse them or use them for supply. So very seldom do you hear a narcissist saying whatever, but another phrase you very seldom hear a narcissist saying is a phrase rather, that I use all the time, and that phrase is, I don't know. Why do I say that? I was thinking about that when I was preparing this, and I say this so often that people often think it's funny. And it is kind of humorous, But what does that actually mean when I say I don't know? Well, first of all, I guess it's kind of obvious. It could just mean I don't know. I don't know. You ask a question, I don't have the answer, so I don't know. But it could also mean other things, like it doesn't matter. So somebody would ask a question or say something, and it just doesn't really matter, doesn't pertain to anything. So I will say, I don't know, meaning, that doesn't matter, kind of like whatever. But sometimes it means, isn't that kind of obvious? Why are you asking me a question about something that is so obvious? What is obvious? Nice day today, right? Instead of saying yes, sometimes I'll say, I don't know, because somebody's trying to make small talk and my mind's engaged. Sometimes we'll say, I don't know, meaning, or I will say, I don't know, meaning, I just don't want to talk about it. I guess we just did that one, didn't we? Somebody asked about the weather, and I don't want to talk, I don't know, whatever. Those phrases, by the way, seem to go together. The other thing about I don't know is it means, at least to me, it means don't bother me because I'm busy. If my mind is engaged, if I'm engaged, if I'm doing something, if somebody were to ask me a question right now, I'm busy, I'm making this video, and rather than say, get out of here, I'm busy making a video, I'd say, I don't know, dismissive, get out of here, don't bother me. I don't hear narcissists using that phrase. Never have. I guess they probably do some point in time, but they don't like to admit they don't know anything. They think they know everything. So why would they use it? Phrase number 3 is you will never hear a narcissist. Well, let me frame it this way. Number 3, I want you to imagine somebody of the caliber of, say, Oprah Winfrey or maybe Donald Trump, beginning a sentence with this phrase. This may be a dumb idea, but now, narcissists don't use that phrase because they don't have dumb ideas. When somebody says, this may be a dumb idea, before they give the idea, they're saying that because they think the response, the feedback is going to be someone's going to say that's a dumb idea. So they're kind of like defending themselves before they even say it. And it may be a great idea, but we go ahead and say this may be a dumb idea. But narcissist, seriously doubt you'll ever hear a narcissist admitting that his dumb idea is actually a dumb idea, even if it is a dumb idea. And I don't think Oprah and Donald Trump, people that caliber, typically, they don't have dumb ideas. They have calculated ideas. People say, well, aren't they narcissists? Well, maybe, but they're smart narcissists if they are. But narcissists themselves, they will never admit to having dumb ideas because, well, they're just all that. Number 4, you will never hear a narcissist say, well, this is the way it's always been. Okay, maybe they say that now and again because they want things done their way, which is probably much different from the way it's always been done, even if the way it's always been done is the best way. They always have a new way, better way. It's always smarter than what everyone else has been doing. I don't care what it is. That's why it's very difficult to drive when there's a narcissist in the car with you, because it doesn't matter what you do, they got a better idea. They tell you how to drive. They are the preeminent backseat drivers, except they have to sit in front, and it doesn't happen very often because narcissists want to drive. You're usually the passenger, they're the one behind the steering wheel. That doesn't mean they're good drivers, it just means they think they are. This is the way it's always been done. Yeah, so what? But you're not going to hear narcissists say that. Number 5 is, it's just not fair. Have you ever heard a narcissist say, it's not fair, it's just not fair? People use that phrase because they feel they've been treated unjust. And sometimes they have, and sometimes it's not fair. But the narcissist won't use that phrase, at least I've never heard one use that phrase, because it comes across as condescending. Like they're putting themselves down, like they're immature, and to them, everything is fair as long as they get their way. So they're never going to say it's not fair because that admits defeat. It admits that they have suffered defeat somehow, some way. They're not going to say it. Again, all these phrases, they may say it now and again, but I've never heard it. Then number 6. Finally, and this is a big one, don't think you will ever hear a narcissist say something like, I'll do my best. Have you ever heard a narcissist say that? I'll do my best. Nah, they're not going to say that because it implies that somebody has a standard, and well, I may not be able to reach your standard, but I'll do the very best that I possibly can. Now, narcissists think they're going to do the best. Doesn't matter what your standard is, they're going to exceed it and do much better. So they're never going to use the phrase, I'll do my best. So what is the point of all that? Well, the point is, if you hear somebody using those phrases repeatedly or a combination of them, that may indicate that the person may not be a full-blown narcissist. And while it's on my mind, let me say that, when we refer to people as narcissists, that doesn't necessarily mean that they have been evaluated by a professional, certified professional, and they have been found to be narcissists, clinical narcissists. Very few people are found that way because narcissists typically don't go to be evaluated because they don't think they need to be. 2 rectangles on the screen. Click one of those if you want our conversation to continue. If not, well, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.